Hi, LoriAnn. Thanks so much for joining me on a well-designed business today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, I love whenever I need to meet a new person in finance because we need more friendlies in that area in our industry. And what I mean by friendlies is people like yourself. I've been getting to know you, and of course, I've read your website, who understand that the design business model is not a cookie cutter business model. And when we go to do our finances, our bookkeeping, and our accounting for this business model, that we need a professional to lead us through this process that has experience, not as just a bookkeeper, but a bookkeeper with particularly an interior design business, but also creative businesses. Do you agree with that, Lorianne?
I 100% agree. I can't tell you how many times I've had people come to us and like just tell me about like past experiences with just other bookkeepers that have tried to do their stuff, and I'm just like, man, there needs to be more people that know what they're doing to help you guys.
It's so true. It's a very complicated business. You
Mhm.
have a dozen or so interior designers that you are your current clients that you're doing their bookkeeping monthly for them. You know, talk a little bit about it because I think that look, most creatives, it's not the way our brain, or it's our first path that our brain wants to take. And so I love to be able to consistently give interior designers and window treatment professionals the validation that this is a hard thing to do to manage and understand your finances for most people, but then you add this layer of complexity of a design business. So give them a little pep talk on that, please.
Yeah. Yeah. My first thing is like, it is very hard and a lot of overwhelming and anxious feelings come up with it. And it's so easy to just like put it in a closet and forget about it. But it is the thing that could either make or break your business. Like it is the foundation block. The numbers, that is the main thing you need to be focusing on. Like that is the black and white information. There's no emotion attached to it. It is that this is what actually is happening. And so many people do have that emotional feeling with money and whatever experience they've had in the past and the way that they view money, however they were raised, that we have to just kind of learn to detach that and just realize that, like, okay, I went into business to make money and I went into business to be a business. And yeah, I like to have the creative outlet, but I do need to be a CEO and I do need to understand what's going on. And so that's where we kind of come in is like, we want to make sure that, like, okay, let's word things in a way that's not just like this overwhelming, different accounting language, but just break it down in a fact of a matter like, hey, this is what's happening and this is what you can do to increase your profit margins and this is what you can do to hit the goals and the vision you have for your business. And that all comes from the numbers.
Yeah, right, right. I noticed something on your website. It was something to the effect of how to love your numbers.
Yeah.
Is this what you're talking like how do you love your numbers? Is it really just ripping the Band-Aid and getting the familiar I can not gonna be able to say that word, getting familiar with them, or what is your secret to how to love your numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the secret is to find someone who can help you love your understand your numbers. Um, but I think, yeah, part of it is like, okay, you get to a certain point, and I see this with every business. They get to a certain point where they're bringing in a decent amount of money, and it's like, okay, we have to put on our big boy pants, and we have to take
Get
responsibility
serious
and
here.
get serious here. And so they do. There is a little bit of the ripping the band-aid off type of thing. But then it's like, okay, once you're constantly looking at it and once you are constantly seeing what is happening over and over again, it becomes this thing that really guides your business and guides the directions to where you're not like making the decisions based off of how you feel or how much is in your bank account. You're basing your decisions off of facts and you're basing them off of your finances, your what's happened in the past and what you're projecting for the future. So many of us, and I would say even myself included, like I'm a business owner. I know how it is day to day. Like it's literally, I mean, it's a roller coaster of emotion. So we can't be basing our decisions off of that. And we can't be basing our decisions, let alone just off of our bank account balance, because that only tells us one thing. So we
Right.
really need to be taking that, like I said, foundation of knowing what's going on before we can start building this house.
I love it. I love it. And what I can hear, LoriAnn, in your conversation is the compassion and the empathy that you have, and I'm sure you bring to the business when you work with designers and other creative professionals, that compassion and empathy for having not turned the corner yet, not really
Mhm.
being in command of the numbers, not really understanding it. And I know in all the conversations I've had with professionals like yourself, but also designers that have taken the time to learn and turn the corner, that it it is just transformational as a business owner.
Mhm.
Do you find the same thing, LoriAnn?
Yeah, it is so fun for me to get a new client, we onboard them, we hop on a recap call, and they are just, like, blown away at what they're seeing, and they're like, "I actually know what's going on, and I know what I can do to, like I know what my next steps need to be." And then even, like, going on to, like, working with us for a year, or we have clients that have been work so we're I guess a little bit of backstory, we are at, like, almost the 4-year mark of our business, and we've had clients that have been with us this whole time, and it's so fun because it's not just about the business, it's about them as a person, and it's about, their life and their lifestyle. I've walked clients through multiple maternity leaves, through kinda scaling back and being home with the kids. I've walked clients through, going up and selling their business because they want to,
Wow.
walked clients through splitting their companies into multiple companies because it's just grown so much. So I wanna know, like, about them as a person, kind of what's going on and what their vision is, and not just about the business that we have touched, but, like, just them.
Interesting. That's interesting. That's 4 very different experiences
Yeah,
to walk an entrepreneur through beyond just, like, rectifying their bank accounts and stuff like that.
yeah.
It makes me wonder, is there, uh I believe and I know that if you don't know how to do your books, you need a bookkeeper from day 1. That's my belief. It's like build that into your thing. I don't care if you go without a salary for 6 months, but that comes, with opening the business. But is there a point that do you think it's ever too soon to work with a company, a professional company like yours? Like, okay, come back to me, sweetie, when you have your first 100K, or does your company say, yeah, you're going into business, you know nothing about the books, let's get you onboarded and let's grow your thing. As long as the person is available and ready to make the financial investment to front the money for you. I'm not
Yeah.
saying you shouldn't be paid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, I mean, I would say that I would like people to start from the beginning.
Right, right.
Start from the beginning, that's just the cost of doing the business, and it really is going to pay off because you're gonna see your numbers instead of going into 6 months from now and you're not even sure if you're profiting anything.
Yeah.
Um, However, I do know realistically that sometimes that's not possible. And so in that scenario, either want the person to do a ton of research and get trained by someone to do their books for the first 6 months until they are ready to outsource it. So I do
Mhm.
know, like, there are scenarios where they might not be able to, like, do the upfront cost, and, like, our minimum cost is 500 a month, and I know that's quite a bit for people that are just starting out. And so sometimes that might not be possible, but I do want you to take it seriously and make sure that it is getting done and that you are getting trained. So at bare minimum, invest in someone who's going to help train you and teach you how to do things.
Okay. So, you know what I would say to that? It's time or money. What are we doing here? Like if
Exactly.
somebody
Yep.
right. Like so if somebody was coaching with me and they were brand new and they said, "Hey, I can hire LoriAnn's company out the gate. I don't even have any revenue yet. It's 500 a month." Or she said, "If I can't do that, I should do a lot of research and make sure I understand what I'm doing and I should do it myself." And I'd be like, "Well, what is LoriAnn?" She's like, "Oh, well, minimum's 500." I'm like, "Right."
Mhm.
One potential client you can close. I don't care if you close a designer by your side day for 2K once a month, you made the 500. Like what are we're going to sit here and
Mhm.
like Google how to do bookkeeping? Stop. Like
Yes.
no. Like,
Yeah.
to me it's like, look, if like I'm super lucky, my husband has a degree in accounting, my mother has been a bookkeeper for businesses for 40, 50, 60 years, right? Like, okay, different story. You want to
Mhm.
start, you've got zero revenue and you're starting with, two of the people you trust most in the world. But if that's not your case, it's to me, like, what's so funny is I've had a lot of conversations recently, LoriAnn. I'll be curious to your thoughts on this, where I understand that there is a positive in this. I'm not knocking this statement, but it's interesting to me how attached I find interior design professionals in particular are to saying the caveat that I have been in business for 1 year, 3, 5, 10, whatever it is, and I've never been in debt. I've never whatever I've got, I've earned the money and then I got it. And it's so funny because the first time I heard it, it struck me as, well, that is a good thing, but I don't know, where's the brownie points for that? I don't get that's a great thing. Okay. And it wasn't the point of the conversation. So there was no reason to point it out. But then I heard it a couple of times coincidentally over a week or two in conversation. And I finally had to go to my husband, who is the brainiac for all businesses. I'm like, am I crazy? But does this stat actually matter? I get not plowing a business in the beginning or at any point into unmanageable debt. But to me, when I relate that to this, I'm going to start an interior design business. I have no clients. I want to allow and understand that it's going to cost me $500 a month for a bookkeeper. Okay. So let me save the first, 5 months up, but I'm going to plow that into that because now I'm going to make clients the first month, and I'm going to manage that money properly the first month,
Mhm.
right? Am I
Yeah.
nuts? How do you feel about this, LoriAnn?
I agree. I mean, I think there's definitely if we're talking about debt, I think there's definitely certain areas that it can be leveraged and utilized and stuff. But as far as just trading time for money, have you read the book Who Not How?
Oh, I have. You know what's funny? I have to look to see if I have it on Audible because there's a lot of books I do on
Yeah.
Audible, and you need to do them 2 and 3 times
Yep.
to really bring them in. Or it's somebody recently told me about it, but who, not how, right?
It's
Good
so
book.
good. And it's basically what you were saying is basically you want to the way that you're going to get farther in life and succeed in life is finding your it's who you have
I
in
have
yeah.
read this. I
Yep.
have listened to this book.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
it's
who
the
you
yes,
have in your circle, and
yes,
it's not how you do something, so you don't Google how to do it. It's who do you have touch base so they can help you,
yes.
so you can
Oh,
do
such a good book.
so you can manage how growing your business and put the time and energy into getting this thing up and started, or growing it to $1 million in revenue, or whatever the vision might be. Um, Everyone, if you're listening, literally go read that book. It's the
Yes.
best book
What I
ever.
loved about that book, LoriAnn, that I thought was interesting was that you could relate it from this very start of your business to a multiple million
Yes.
dollar business. That was I was like, oh, we need a lot of this, more of this who, not
Mhm.
how over here.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it also reminded me of conversations with my cousin Eileen Hahn, who was a leadership consultant and an organizational behaviorist consultant. And if I had a nickel for every time in the last 20 years she said to me, "Who else could do that for you,
Yeah.
though? How else, who else could you and I'd be like, nobody can. She'd be like, I don't know. Keep asking, go find the person. And oh my God, that was the book. I'm just getting better download in my brain of it.
Mhm.
That was the book that the guy who is the narrator and the author of the book, which was actually the who for the actual guy of the who, not
Yes.
how principle,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so
He's like,
crazy.
I am the living proof of his who, not how.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
really a good book, and it just kinda reminded me, what you were saying is just,
Yes.
it's the who. Like you're saying,
Yes.
who can do that for you so that you can focus on what you're good at and what you want out of your life. And I mean, it's something that I mean, even in my personal life, who can help me do
Yes.
this? Who
Yes.
can help me, I don't know, clean my house? Who can help me draw
Exactly.
landscaping?
That's
Who can do the yard work? Whatever it might be. And there was such a mental block to me sometimes that I was just like, now why would I pay someone to do that whenever I could do that? And in the book they talked about, I don't know what, stringing up Christmas lights or something, and then someone fell and was
yes,
out of
yes.
work for weeks.
And he was out of work and the company almost went under.
Yeah, so it's just and to the point is I want we've talked about, and we just moved. This is getting sidetracked, but we are talking about Christmas lights, and I'm like, we're hiring someone to do our Christmas lights. I'm like, we're not
That's
doing it
right.
on our own, because when you find your who, you're allowed, or you're allowing space to just continue
To
to
do
grow.
more of your
Yeah.
thing, the thing that you do, right? I 100% agree. And that's why it's interesting because the who, not how helps you qualify. Am I just throwing money at something for no reason? See, that's my thing. Like when I brought that conversation to Vin, we went down the road and I was like, look, I'm not talking about, for no reason whatsoever. I'm 1 month in business. I'm hiring $100,000 CFO. No, no. But can I do better with growing my business if I'm not doing the books stupid?
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like I can do them good.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I just think that's awesome. So I'm glad that we're on the same page with that. Now, it's funny because other things that I read on your website was what are the numbers that we actually should be tracking and people are not ignoring those numbers? And I've had that sentence answered on this podcast a couple of times. So
Uh-huh.
I'm curious, your take on that, like the numbers that we actually should be looking at and I'm going to move to, I'm making an assumption. We've moved to the level where we've worked with yourself, someone like you. We understand what happens in our bookkeeping. We're no longer doing it every day, but we know enough to
Mhm.
monitor you and have an intelligent conversation with you. And now we're going to show up once a week or once a month. And what are the actual numbers are the important ones for us to be looking at?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's such a good question. I'm gonna list off a couple that are probably pretty normal, but then I'll have a couple more too. Obviously, we wanna know what your sales are. I also wanna
Mhm.
know what different streams of income you have. I wanna know what your gross profit is, so after any directly related cost, I wanna know that profit margin, and then basically your, like, profit at the end of the day after all expenses are paid, and I want to see what that profit margin is and what that number is. So those are your typical, like, you'll see your sales, your gross profit, and your net profit. Um,
I love it.
and then really focus on with our CFO clients that I've kind of moved into a little higher tier. What I call is the true profit of the business, like what you're truly
Mm.
making, because there's so many things that doesn't show up on the profit and loss in your finances. So things like, you might have credit card debt that you're trying to pay off, kind of getting
Mhm.
that thing knocked down. You might have a line of credit that you're trying to get knocked down. You're taking owner's draws. On
Mhm.
top of maybe you have an S corp salary that you're going through the business, but you're taking additional 10K per month in owner's draw. That doesn't show up on the profit and loss, and so you're not seeing
Mm.
that when you pull a profit and loss report. So I'm factoring in what is all happening, and that kind of ties in with like the cash flow and stuff. And that's what I kind of show at the end of the day. What's the true profit of the business? And then obviously we want to pay attention to what's in the bank account as well.
So that's an interesting question. I didn't think to ask recently, based on a conversation in my business, why doesn't that owner's draw show up on the profit and loss?
Yeah. So, in regards to like an S corp, which is probably the most common
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
So S corps I love S corps. They're such an amazing, like, quick tax strategy that you can use. But what you do is when you switch to an S corp or you start out as an S corp, as the owner, you are an employee of your business and you get put on as a reasonable salary. Usually, you want it as low as possible. Your CPA can do like an analysis to what hits the guidelines for the IRS. And with that, all of like payroll tax will hit, all of like any tax deductions and stuff will hit, or tax withholdings, excuse me, will hit that payroll. And that is an expense to the company.
Mhm.
However, the owner's draw is not an expense to the company. Um, and the cool thing is a lot of people are like, well, why not? Because then it will flow through, it'll increase my profit will be higher. But you will not have to pay that payroll tax, which totals to 15.3%. So that owner's draw doesn't get that 15.3% of that payroll tax if you would put that through payroll. So it's
Okay.
saving you around 15% in taxes.
So
What
what
you would
you're
pay.
saying is that you are working around a recommendation of, like, say 50,000 a year in salary and $50,000 a year in owner's draw, and you're maximizing your net income to your home because 50 of that is not getting payroll tax.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. But just like, we're not doctors and we're not healing people, we're not the person's CPA. So that is also going to, like, I just know in my life, I got income coming from here. I got income coming, like it's a chess game
It is.
of, it's not like if you own one business and maybe, you're the sole provider of your household, that makes total sense. But if you own a business and maybe your partner is getting a $400,000 salary from a corporation, that may or may not make sense. Or if you're like me and Vinny and you own three different businesses, we're constantly with the CPA going, well, how much from this one and what's one's like
Yeah.
what are we doing there to make the tax structure work the most in our favor? So we can't just take the blanket
Yeah.
advice, right, LoriAnn? We have to
Yeah.
kind of like do the next layer of what's actually happening in your world, right?
Yeah, and that's one thing that we do focus on because sometimes we'll only have one insight to one business that's going
Yes. Yeah.
on. And so we take what we see. And this is another reason why I do truly believe that the bookkeepers and the people that are managing the cash and helping with the CFO stuff should be separate than your tax preparer because they're going to
Mm-hmm.
look at the full picture on the tax side. We're going to be looking at the picture from the cash management side of things. I see something that could be beneficial. I direct it and like bring it to the tax strategist's attention. They look at the full picture of maybe they have some equity in this business, they might own another business here and another business here. How is that going to affect everything, and is that a wise move? And then
Right.
whatever they say on a tax side, then I take it and let's implement it on the business side, and then let's maximize that on a cash management, making sure we're managing the cash properly then. So it is
Right.
a back and forth playing. So yes, that was a blanket statement, but it's not blanket for everybody. Like nothing
No,
is.
no, 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 no. And I know that because I know, at some time they're like, okay, we're going to pound your salary over here. We're going to pay all the taxes for this one business.
Yeah.
like we're going to level that over
Yep.
here and I'm going to put it over there. But it was funny because recently Vin and I were talking and we were talking about, cause it's tax time and we're talking about, the tax return for the different businesses and the P&L and L and all this stuff. And I said what my salary, like what my pay was from this business. And he was like, no, it wasn't. It was this much. And I'm like, dude, it was this much. And he's like, no, that wasn't on the P&L, which was interesting. Right. And he goes, no, he said, no, that's not what was in the tax return, or that wasn't in something. And I said, well, that doesn't sound like it counted for my owner's draw.
Yeah.
And that's when he said, well, that wasn't in the P&L. And that's when I said, well, what am I going to tell you? What do I know from a P&L from a this? I'm just
Yeah.
going to tell you I actually got the money and I did because you know what I spent it on.
I know where it went.
Right? I'm like, hello, buddy. You know
Yeah.
exactly where that went.
Yeah.
So, but it was interesting. Even him with his advanced understanding did not make that connection that the owner's draw is not showing up on the P&L. I'm sure when I go and say to him tonight, he'll be like, oh, that's right. I completely got that. But in that conversation, I
Yeah.
missed it. Right.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. It is, I think what I love and what I'm learning by talking to you in this conversation is that you're willing to go down the different roads. And
Mhm.
that is the thing that we need in a bookkeeper because like it's funny. I know that I know more than I say I know about finances. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always make the joke like I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. I know that I know more than I say I know. I mean it's 40 plus years of being in a business, right? But there's that one layer of I don't know what you know. And
Mhm.
I don't want my first layer person that I'm meeting with every month to know less than me because
Yes.
that's not fun. Like
Yeah.
if I'm the smartest one in this room, we have a problem,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Someone
Yeah,
told me once is when you're hiring people or out, whether they're contractors, employees, just hire people that are smarter than you. And
that's
I've
right.
done that in my business and with my full-time employees and with I'm outsourcing, and it's the best thing.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. It's like I, I want to be challenged. I want
Mhm.
to be asked. I want to be somebody to say, you should take this all in salary, or you should split this up and do owner's draw, or you should do this because otherwise where I'm at in my knowledge, and most of us are that aren't specialists in this, we're just going to do the thing
Mhm.
that we're supposed to do. But like to that exact point, that's a very good piece of advice for someone that has one business and this is the primary income for their home.
Yeah.
But as soon as you put some other eggs in that basket, now it becomes a next level conversation, not just repeating what I heard on a podcast.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to note is like we prioritize like what we do is we want to look at everything with a holistic standpoint. So
Mhm.
I'm a very like holistic person in general. So like with my health and like very like let's look at the full picture of what's going on. And so I kind of implement that into what I do with my business and my clients and stuff is because there are so many different things that's going on, and so, like, let's look at the full picture. Like, I don't want to, like I said, don't want to just look at just one little thing.
Yeah.
I want to look at everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good because in this type of hiring a professional in this type of area, in this area, it's we often don't know enough to know what we don't know, so that if
Yes.
the professional in your seat doesn't have the viewpoint of holistic and you just show up and start executing, yes, it's going to be technically right, but this is how come we get into the situation where, I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times, oh, I just hired a new bookkeeper and they're tearing everything down that the other bookkeeper did, and they said the other bookkeeper had no idea what he or she was doing, and we're paying 3 months to reorganize the things. And
Yeah.
to me, that happens for two reasons. As a design professional, we don't have enough knowledge to monitor what's happening and ask good questions. So
Yeah.
now whatever is happening is what's happening. And number two, that professional that was involved is not taking that holistic approach and asking the questions that we don't know need to be asked. Like I would never have known to say to our CPA, "Hey, take into account, my income at WindowWorks, my income at Exciting Windows, put it all in a big bucket and let's make this the best for Vin and Lou."
Hmm.
I would have been like, "Okay, we're just all doing the best." Like, no, that needs some strategy over it, and that's where they came and like, "Okay, let's put everything in front of us. Let's figure this out for the plan for the year," right?
Yeah. So true. So true. And like along lines with that too is like we work with so many different tax strategists and CPAs. And so we see like so many tax strategies, and it's kind of fun because I can implement different things that I learned in my stuff with all of my
Oh, that's
things.
fun.
But we're able to really spot potential like opportunities. I have a client that her husband, she's like, yeah, we were just in conversation. She's like, yeah, he just did like a $12,000 deer lease for hunting. And I just like talking to me about stuff. And I'm just like, oh yeah, didn't you mention the other call that you guys were starting like an ATV, uh like I don't know, selling ATVs? I'm like, could you
Yeah.
use that? Couldn't you use that to go like drive and do test drives and stuff? She's like, oh yeah. And I don't even do the books with that business, but I just got them a $12,000 tax deduction that their CPA didn't even catch. So it's like just in the conversation, like I don't. That's like, yeah, I don't touch that books at all. But
Right.
I'm like, oh, there's I don't know, $3,000 to $4,000 of taxes saved right there.
That's
So
it. That's it. That's great. I
yeah,
love that. I love that. It's that, like you said, you called it the holistic
yeah.
approach, looking all around 360 at a business. Um, the thing is, so it's clear what I feel like has also been revealed in this conversation is that your company is set up, whether you are new and out of the gate and brand starting a new business or in the first 3 to 5 years, but you're also very comfortable working with seasoned professionals at this next level, like the income and the gross revenues are getting to that million, two, and
Mhm.
three, and we really do need these strategies at this level, right?
Yeah, I would say a majority of our clients are like on the monthly bookkeeping, so they are just doing the monthly bookkeeping. But we have quite a few people that are like hitting that $1 million, 2, 3, $4 million mark. And I would say even before that, like if someone is starting to hit like the 500,000 in revenue,
Sure.
I would almost even push it a little bit earlier, but let's get more into budgeting. Let's get into projections. What is your cash changing week by week? What are you going to have in 4 weeks? We had a client that we estimated what exactly down to, I think we were off maybe $6 in their checking account, six
Wow.
weeks prior. And so like 6 weeks prior, and we came in on Monday and we're like, we got it down to the dollar. Like, I mean, down to, I guess
Wow.
down to the $6. Um, technically. But the point is like that allows them to know what they can do, like because they're
Yes.
looking into the future and being strategic with how they're moving their money and how they're using their cash. Um, so yeah, we
That's that to me, and you might say that's exactly what it is, but that to me starts to be into those CFO
Yeah,
type
and we
services,
do.
right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So there's different ways to work with your company. You can strictly hire you as bookkeepers,
Mhm.
and then you can hire this next level advisory and CFO where you get into the forecasting and the budgeting and the projections and the cash flow. So is it do you do like if somebody's like, I got a bookkeeper, she's been my bookkeeper forever, she's amazing, he's amazing, I'm not leaving him, but I am shopping for CFO services. Do you do one without the other, or do you only do it if it comes all the way through
Yeah.
the whole part of the business?
Um, we have worked a couple times with being like more of a fractional CFO, to where we
Hmm.
don't do any of the bookkeeping. I'm just very picky on who we work with just because like I can't do my CFO work if I don't have accurate numbers and if it's not laid in a way that
Ah,
I can build upon. So as long as the bookkeeper is willing to kind of take direction and instruction from the CFO and is cooperable, then we're all good. But if they're not doing what they're doing properly, then I can't do my
yeah.
CFO work. So we do like to keep it all in house because we like to have the bookkeeping side of stuff and then the CFO side of things we can really build upon. Um, but there are people here and there that we do
The
the
rare
fractional
time.
CFO.
It's not your
Yeah.
preference, but
Yeah.
if you're a rare bird and you've got it well locked down, you'll consider it,
Yeah.
is what I'm hearing. And is it even something like you ballpark that entry level bookkeeping for the startup business is going to be a minimum of 500 a month, and I'm sure the more employees you add, the more revenue
Mhm.
you add, that those fees are going to go up. But is there that same thing if you want to graduate and add the level of CFO services? Is there like boxes or little fancy buckets of price point around it, or is it all very
Yeah.
customized? How do we look at that?
Yeah, it's pretty customized. It starts at 1,500 a month. And
Hmm.
that is including the bookkeeping. So it's like
Ah,
it's not separate. So that is including the bookkeeping. But it ranges. I mean, we have clients that are on like a $5,000 per month package. We have clients on the $1,500 per month package, and then we have clients on a $500 per month monthly bookkeeping
right.
package. So very
Right,
customized depending
right.
on what they need.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, it's the same as somebody says, "Well, how much is it gonna be to design my room?" It's like,
I don't
you know,
I need more
yeah,
info.
like right, and it's probably gonna start at about 5K and it could be 25K, like, I don't know, but,
Yeah.
like, it's not $5,
Yeah.
so are you in the price? That's all we need to always do here
Mhm.
is get us into a ballpark estimate so we know if we should reach out or call or have the conversation if we're ready for it or
For
whatever.
sure.
So, now one other thing that I wanted to ask you was you told us, and I love, by the way, the numbers that you do want people to look at because as I was going, I'm like, oh, those are the same five numbers that we do every single week in our partner meeting. I'm like, okay, okay. I guess Vinny really does actually know what he's doing, right? Okay. What is the one thing that most people miss in their numbers? What is that answer in there?
I would say aligning their cash flow with their budget. Like, really
Ah,
focusing on their cash flow because, like, for example, you could be buying, um, a bunch of stuff right now, putting on the credit card, but then that credit card you're not gonna pay that credit card statement until a month and a half from now, depending on where the date is, and then by then, you kind of forget what's going on, and you don't have you're like you log in one day, "Oh, yeah, I have a bunch of money in my bank account." The next day, "Oh, yeah, I have to pay a credit card, and I don't have any money to make payroll in 3 days." So
okay.
that's the thing. That's I find the missing piece is really focusing on the cash flow and tying that into what the budget is going on.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I love it. Anything that I left out in asking you about your business and about the way you work with interior designers that you're like, "Oh my god, don't end the show without me letting them tell them this."
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it was pretty good. But yeah, I mean, you can find us at our website. It's profitpriority.co. My Instagram's LoriAnnKuntz.co. And then it's tied to our business one as well. But that's kind of where I'm hanging out. So people can always come find me and chat with me if you want. But yeah, would
I
love
love
to
it.
get in touch.
All right. Well, I have a feeling you're going to get a few knocks on your door,
Sounds
LoriAnn,
great.
because we love when we find a finance person that, has these qualities, this holistic approach, the the non-judgmental and understanding of what it takes to really help a creative mind wrap themselves and their mind around their numbers. And you seem to have all three working. So thank you tons for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.